So recently I've been getting into making TV show posters for shows that haven't come out yet with new seasons. Here's some on the screen right now. You can view all of them over on Instagram, Coleslaw Cartoons No Spaces, check it out. But the shows I'm going to be talking about today have definitely not been greenlit for new seasons. But it's fine. We're going to talk about them anyway. Yay! Welcome back to the Toon Chat podcast. I am your host, as always, Coleslaw. Streaming services. They exist. You got your Disney Plus. I've been watching some Moon Knight. It's been pretty good. You got like your HBO Maxes and Pluses and Maxes and all the other stuff. Here's a list just of a whole bunch of them. But today we're talking about the OG Netflix itself. What a fantastic streaming service with a lot of fantastic shows. But there are some cartoons on that service that got a little bit under the radar. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So let's just jump right into the first cartoon with... Oh, I gotta pick which one I'm gonna do first. These are all out of order. 12 Forever. You probably have never heard of that, so I'm gonna tell you all about it right now. So you can probably guess what the show is about based on the title, 12 Forever. It's about a girl named Reggie who wants to stay 12 forever. So she grows up in this weird fantasy world where she and her friends live out their weird fantasies, and it gets strange, but it's a lot of fun. That fantasy world is called Endless Island, and it's really intriguing to watch. It's a setting unlike any other I've seen, and the art style is really fun. It's just goofy and wacky to all extents. The three characters work together well to be like our trio of protagonists. I say they all have pretty good dynamics, and they kind of have good dialogue together. Nothing too crazy, but just it's solid. It works for what the show is. I'd say the show's highlight is when it goes to Earth, and you can see the contrast between the crazy mystical nut stuff that happens in the Endless Island with Earth. Especially when the episodes where Reggie gets put in the ER. Those episodes are the best out of the entire series. These are the episodes that happens in. So just skip to these ones. And usually you look at shows where the Earth setting is boring and the other setting's better. Take Star Versus, for example. Whenever they're on Earth, it's kind of, whatever. But then they're on Muni and stuff like that, and it's yes. Or Steven Universe, when they're up in space, it's oh boy, this is getting exciting. But I mean, Steven Universe is just a fantastic show anyway, so Earth is also great. But anyway, this one's kind of the opposite, where you got the mystical, crazy world is... It's fun, a little bit repetitive, but when you contrast that with Earth, it gets really, really good. And the reason it gets really good on Earth is because it matures a little bit. That's probably the one con I have on this show, is it's probably the most immature out of the three I'm going to be talking about. It is a bit childish, and I know cartoons are childish, but you take Centaur World, for example. That is one of the most childish shows of all time with the setting it's in, but it really does a good job in maturing, and in Centaur World, it does the things that 12 Forever couldn't do. I guess you could say that 12 Forever walked so Centaur World could run. Is that a thing people say? I like that. I'm going to keep using that. The show did unfortunately get canceled after just one season, which is a giant holdback for me because, your show needs to have not just quality, but also quantity, and this show doesn't have that. I can't really judge it too harshly on that because it's not their fault, but it is something that definitely holds the show back in terms of how good it is, so... If the show didn't get canceled, however, it could have expanded on the character of Connolly. And this character, who's right here, you can take a look at her, she could have been the best character the show had. It actually was the best character the show had, but she had so much potential in, if there was a season 2, she would have made the show instantly that much better, that much more of a pleasure to watch. But unfortunately, that's just not going to happen. But that's okay. Let's just move on to the next show. I do recommend giving 12 Forever a watch, though. This next show is one I have mixed feelings on. It is called The Hollow. It is where, again, a group of 3 teens, that's just Netflix, cup of tea right there. 3 teenagers. And in this one, they work together to find their way home after waking up in a mysterious realm filled with puzzles and beasts. So kind of interesting, kind of like a weird escape room, Hunger Games type thing, but animated. And yeah, it has a really neat art style, clean animation. It's fun to watch, but does have some stuff holding it back. But before I totally crap on this show, I will say that the mystery and elements in this show are really interesting. especially in season 1 when you get a whole bunch of like questions as they throw us right into the story. We're like immediately have so many questions in our brains. The way that they answer those questions aren't great, but they set it up okay. Delivery, meh. And I'm just gonna say right now, there's like a weird live action twist at the end. It was a weird risk. They took it. Okay. It didn't really ruin things, but it was not necessary. But I mean, it's a risk. I appreciate risk sometimes. Sure. But to the bad on this show is, I could just say season 2 and end right there. Season 1 was good. It was decent. But then season 2 was a huge step down. Oh my goodness. I was watching season 2 of this show when it came out, and I almost wanted to stop watching it. It was that bad. The plot is all over the place as we get new characters introduced, and the characters from the previous season are super inconsistent, and it's kind of frustrating, I think. The most like odd, almost frustrating thing is with Adam's character in the second season. It's like he's just totally a new person for some reason. He becomes like really unlikable and just like the way he speaks and stuff. But it's just like his character is just not great. The other characters are a little bit better, not much better. But if the characters were a little bit better in this show, I think it could have potential because the mystery aspects there, just the execution with other aspects, just doesn't really work. I will give season 2 a little bit of credit for the death scene that happens. It's pretty good, but the ending is so messy and baloney. It's really not satisfying at all, and like I almost forget what happened. So I'll just leave it at that. Just watch season 1 of this show if you want to check this one out. But this next show I'm going to talk about is the one that you should check out the most. It's my favorite of the 3. So here it is. Made by the one and only Pendleton Ward himself. No, it's not Adventure Time. That is not on Netflix. It is Midnight Gospel, which is one of the most unique shows of all time in the execution. Like, it's really strange. The plot, in quotation marks, is Clancy owns his unlicensed multiverse simulator, which he uses to travel through bizarre worlds interviewing residents for his space cast. What? Okay. But what makes the show unique is the concept. The show's writing isn't writing. You heard me. None of the dialogue in the show was written for the animation it was put to. It was a podcast originally, and they animated over top of it, which never happens before. Like, that's not a thing that happened. No one's heard of that. And so it's just such an interesting concept. It's a really fun podcast mixed with random animated stories, and it's just, you never know what you're gonna get. It's like a mixed bag. It's fun, it's wacky, it's strange, but Pendleton Warren does a great job because he made Adventure Time and now he makes this, so you know it's gonna be high quality. But you cannot talk about Midnight Gospel without talking about that final episode. The final episode is better than every other episode combined. I could sit here and talk all day about that final episode. It hits so hard. The topic that podcast about it's heavy and it's just emotional, but it's put to like this just like magical grand animation that doesn't really have to do with the podcast, but it does. And it's wacky and weird, but it just works. And that's the one that really sticks in your head after you watch this. Like, I haven't watched Midnight Gospel for a good 2 years, and I still remember all the events of that final episode. It just hits all the notes. But I guess for, like, some cons is, like, the cons is kind of just, like, what the show is. Like, it takes a risk of being, like, the weird podcast thing, which is good. It's, like, a pro, but it's also, like, a con for just what it is. It's kind of random, so it is a unique thing, but personally, I would prefer, like, a good story-driven show. Like, I don't know, Dragon Prince or Arcane, other Netflix shows like that. But this was still, like, a good change of pace, and definitely something you should check out. So yeah, Netflix has a lot to offer in the cartoon department. You may have heard of, like, She-Ra or BoJack, but these three you probably haven't heard of before, but they're still worth a watch in my opinion. So that's all I have to say about that. So now let's get into everyone's favorite segment. What the dump happened last month? To be or not to be? That's the question. And the answer is to be, in terms of the Owl House, because it got its season 2B, it returned, and it was everything we hoped it would be. We got 4 new episodes in the month of March, so I'm going to talk about those. Returning from the hiatus, we got episode 11. And in this episode, we got to see, I think the highlight was being Rain's character, who got a whole lot more interesting, as she's now involuntarily hypnotized to being involved with the Emperor's Coven. And the Emperor's Coven is such an interesting concept, so that's really fun to look at. And speaking of fun things to look at, Hootie without skin, boneless worm bird. It is scary, but you know what? It's kind of mesmerizing. Look at it. It's kind of creepy. But yeah, that was the first episode back from the hiatus. It was a good one, I think. The Owl House is just really rolling out the content, keeping really, really good things going. And then the week after that, we got episode 12, which was like a flashback episode, in a way. So it was like a time-traveling episode. Disney loves to do that, don't they? But we got to expand upon Philip's character. He was given a lot of development, as he now plays a huge role in what I'm thinking is going to be season 3. I think his arc is going to be so much bigger when it comes to the upcoming episodes in season 3. We also got to see Ida's parents, which is a fantastic touch because they were knotted a little bit earlier, but now they're brought here, and especially Ida's father. It's like a super really quality story with the palisman and stuff like that. But I think Lilith, this time around, Ida's sister, was kind of boring, more dull, and she was in the entire episode with Luz. I don't know, she just, something about her dialogue and stuff just wasn't as intriguing as she normally is. She's normally this super fun Ida's sister character, but this time it was kind of more dull. That's all I have to say about that episode, though. And then you got episode 13, which is a Hunter episode, which are normally pretty dang cool. However, this one, he's not nearly as great. When we had the Hunter versus Amity battle, that was some really, really good stuff. This one was kind of a little bit more iffy. Hunter goes to Hexside, where he has this new sport with it's kind of I don't know, Quidditch, but not. I don't know, but we got to expand upon Palisman, which is always fun. I love that concept for the show, just seeing all the Palisman and what the Emperor's going to do with them. But this one was kind of a slow-paced episode, so not much to say about this one. Hunter was there, Palisman, cool. And then finally we had episode 14, and this episode as a whole was okay. Amity's father was expanded a little bit upon. That was good to see. And we got new costume designs with the whole Blight family, which is awesome. I'm a sucker for costume designs. I've said it over and over again, and I'll keep saying it. But the absolute standout for this episode, and what might make this episode the best of what I've said so far, is the reveal of Luz's father being deceased. It is very, very upsetting, but very, very well written for these characters, especially as Luz goes through it with Amity, as she cannot go through it with her mother this year. That is just awful. That is so terrible, but so well written. And speaking of parents being dead, what a fantastic transition to Amphibia, since Sprig's mother is also dead, and that was revealed in the earlier season. So, Disney just loves to do that, just kill off parent characters, don't they? But yeah, let's transition over to Amphibia Season 3B. And with the Amphibia return came the return of actually Amphibia, the name of the show. So you got episode 10, Professor X is finally out of the story. He was annoying. Just thank goodness he's gone, as Anne portals back to Amphibia. And yeah, that's all that happened. It's the transition between Earth and Amphibia. No other comments. Good to be back in Amphibia. Earth was not what it lived up to be. It was not a fun place to be. Amphibia was the much funner place to be. Like I was talking about earlier with, 12 Forever, about how the mystical world was worse. This time, Earth was much worse. So it's good to be back. And then we got episode 11, which we got to see the whole new state of Amphibia after True Colors, of course. And it was in this crazy, just broken down apocalyptic type vibe. And that's a really fun vibe to go through with a cartoon. Take a look at Gravity Falls, Kipo, and Adventure Time in parts of it. And that's just really, really fun to look at. But we got the return of Sasha in this episode, which And like her return automatically makes this one episode better than all the ones on Earth. Okay, forget about Earth. We don't care about that planet. I live on that planet. It's boring. Go to Amphibia, where there's human frog people. Keep it there. And then we got to see Spivey. So just a plus. Even as ridiculous as that concept of the episode was, Spivey is automatically thumbs up in my book. Next, we got episode 12. The first half of the episode, uneventful. Moving on. Then we got to this city of Proteus, and that's where things actually started to get interesting. You got the weird blind snake thingies, and they provide a lot of good clarity as far as like the lore of the music box and other parts of the show, which is the music box is one of the best parts of the show, so I will take that. And then you got the most recent episode, number 13. This one's kind of just like middle of the road, not much to say. Again, Mother Ohm was a pretty cool character. Visually, she provided lots of gorgeous scenes. The other half of the episode with Sprig and the other dude, I don't even remember, why do I not remember his name? But anyway, it's just, they're kind of like just expanding the rebellion at this point, which is fine. You can expand the rebellion, but that's just like basically another word for filler episode. And I just kind of want to see the big battle. I want to see the King Andrius back again. How about bring him? I just kind of want to jump to that with all these filler episodes. But you know what? It's still been fun to watch. So yeah, Disney's been pumping out some Alice and Amphibia, which is super duper fun to watch because it's really, really well made and it's just a whole lot of fun. But yeah, that's all I have time for today. Thank you all so much for listening to another Toon Chat podcast, and I will see you all next time. See ya.